Alright, we have come to the next part to look at the problems of balance of payment disequilibrium. So it is also referring to the effects of balance of payment disequilibrium. Disequilibrium could refer to a deficit or a surplus. A deficit or surplus seldom poses a problem if it is short-term or not excessively large. For example, if a country were to incur a deficit on the balance of payment because of the need to import raw material and capital goods for their own production and like perhaps for the economic growth, the country may have to borrow to cover the deficit over a few years. However, as the country develops further, the productive capacity increases and it will be able to repay the loans. Over here, when we refer to the problems, it refers to a problems whereby the deficit or surplus is persistent and severe. Alright, we shall look at the persistent deficit. When there is a persistent deficit, right, one of the internal effects is that it is a depletion of the official reserve. Why is this so? Because due to the deficit, it needs to be financed by drawing down on official reserve of gold and foreign currency. It means that the country may sell away the gold or foreign currency in return for the local currency. Then because of this, right, the official reserve will be running down. So there will be a decrease in the official reserve in the account. So therefore, to prevent a depletion of the official reserve, the country may eventually have to devalue or to allow the depreciation of the currency or a depreciation of the exchange rate of the currency. So it depends on the exchange rate system adopted in the country. So the topic on the exchange rate will be taught in the next chapter. Alright, the next effect is it will be an economic recession. So if the deficit is actually caused by a current account deficit, it may reflect that there is a lack of competitiveness in the country's product. It will mean that it could be also due to unfavorable terms of trade or excessive spending on the imports. So therefore, because of this, right, there will be a fall in AD and leading to a fall in the income and output and employment. So the fall in the output also means that the economy is actually facing recession. The underlying lack of competitiveness in the products of the country products, right, may also indicate that it is productive inefficient, resulting in the wastage of the country resources. However, on the other hand, if the deficit is actually caused by a long-term capital outflow, meaning to say, for example, foreign direct investment whereby the country invests in other country and therefore there is an outflow of capital from the economy, we can expect that the future benefit in the form of invisible earnings might increase. So therefore, the extent of the problems of a deficit will therefore depends on the causes of the deficit. Alright, the next point is on the external effects. The first part is there could be a devaluation of the exchange rate and a loss of confidence. Why is this so? To prevent a depletion of the official reserve, as we mentioned just now, the country will have to allow the currency to depreciate continuously, which therefore destroy the confidence in the currency. So due to the lack of the confidence in the currency, right, it could possibly lead to a panic selling of the country currency and hence destroying the external value of the country currency. So the lack of the confidence could also lead to a massive capital outflow from the country and hence therefore worsening the financial account and then the balance of payment. The next external effect is there will be an increase in the foreign debt burden. So instead of devaluing the currency, the country may rely on international borrowing to finance the BOP deficit. So in this case, right, there will be an increase in the foreign debt. So the foreign debt or the external debt of the country includes money owed to the private commercial bank, other governments or international financial institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. So therefore, a persistent BOP deficit may thus result in a growing foreign debt burden, which the country may find increasingly difficult to repay. So to summarize, when we look at a persistent deficit, right, there are 2 points or rather two internal effects and two external effects that students have to be aware. Internal effects referring to the 2 points whereby the official reserve may be depleted, and as well as the economic recession within the country. The external effects, it will be the devaluation of the exchange rate and the loss of confidence, as well as an increase in the foreign debt burden. So we shall look at the next part whereby there is a persistent surpluses. So when there is a persistent surpluses, right, it will lead to a continuous accumulation of the foreign exchange reserve. So a surplus is often regarded as a symbol of the national economic success. So however, when the persistent or the surplus is persistent and large, right, it will also have some undesirable effects, such as the country surplus is another country deficit. So when the other country is facing deficit, right, it may retaliate, for example, by resorting to the import control or other protectionistic measures, and hence therefore the volume of free trade may be reduced. So hence, a persistent global trade imbalances could destabilize the global financial system. So this is actually a case that is happening in UK, in Europe currently. Because of the persistent deficit that Europe and UK faced previously, they have to borrow money from the other countries, and hence therefore affecting the exchange rate as well as the trade with the other countries. So therefore it is not positive when there is a persistent surplus in one country affecting the other country. The next effect is a Dutch disease effect. It's actually named after the experience of the Holland discovery of North Sea gas and its negative effects on the manufacturing sector. What happened during that time was there is a discovery of natural resources in Holland, and therefore this attracted a lot of foreign direct investment into the country. So it resulted in an increase in the country exchange rate, i.e. an appreciation of the Dutch currency or the Holland currency, and therefore this makes the country export, especially from the manufacturing industry, the country export less price competitive due to the appreciation of the Holland currency. So hence, as mentioned, surpluses may appreciate the exchange rate to a level that decreases the price competitiveness of a country's export and making the import more attractive. So in this case, right, the net export will decrease, so lowering the AD as well as the actual growth, i.e. there will be a decrease in the output. The next effect when there is a persistent surpluses is it could lead to a demand pull inflation. This is because when there is a surpluses, it means that the export is more than the import. So hence, if it continues on, the AD will increase, the aggregate expenditure will increase, and therefore leading to inflationary pressure, whereby at output level, or rather when the economy is near to the classical range, right, there will be a lack of spare capacity in the economy, and hence output will not increase, but however the price will increase. So you might want to refer to the ADAS model to have a better understanding. The next problem is there will be changes to the money supply. So in an open economy, when the exchange rate is actually fixed, domestic money supply is affected by the balance of payment. Why is this so? Because a surplus, right, tends to lead to an increase in the money supply, while deficit reduces the money supply. So these changes in the money supply due to the external balance may lead to domestic problem. So for instances, a country with a BOP surplus may be at the same time faces inflation. And with this inflation, the increase in money supply due to surpluses can worsen the domestic inflation. So just to repeat, domestic money supply increases with the balance of payment surpluses, and hence therefore this external disequilibrium will lead to an internal instability in the macroeconomic aims, i.e. an increase in the price level inflation. And just in case you might find it difficult to understand why when there is a BOP surplus, there will be an increase in the money supply in the country. So you might want to think about when there is a surplus, there will be the inflow of the currency into the economy is much larger than the outflow of the currency. As such, you might want to say that there is an increase in the money supply. On the other hand, there is another reason is because of the fixed exchange rate. In order to keep the exchange rate at the fixed rate, so the government will actually control the interest rate. So to control interest rate at a low rate, the money supply will be increased to decrease the interest rate. So this one I'll explain it under the next chapter under exchange rate policy. So we have come to the end of this video, whereby looking at, or rather discussing and explaining the effects of persistent surplus and persistent deficit. Thank you.